Hey guys, Graz here. Today we're checking out Hidden Gems on the Mac Plus. There were hundreds of games released for this computer, and it seems like over time, these titles have just become more and more obscure. It's my mission here on this channel to help preserve the history of these games, and to help make sure they don't vanish or get lost to time. So in this video, I want to highlight a few games that most people have not heard of, but are very much worth your time. The first of which is a little game called Snake Bar. As you might have guessed from the name, it's a classic snake-style game, where you control a snake moving around the screen, gobbling up apples to grow longer. You have to avoid running into yourself or hitting any walls, or it's game over. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've seen snake games before, and there are at least a couple of other ones for Mac Plus. But this one here is special. In Snake Bar, the goal is to not just eat as many apples as possible, but to collect a set amount of them to complete each level, which you can keep track of how many you need here on the bottom right. Once you've eaten enough apples, a door will open up, which you've got to navigate your snake through the door to complete the level. And that's one of the best things about Snake Bar, the levels. There are 30 or so challenging stages here. Plus, if you ever get bored with the pre-designed levels, there's a level editor that lets you create your own custom levels, so the fun never has to end. You'll also notice that little progress bar here on the bottom of the screen. When that runs out, more apples will appear on the screen, so that's like a timer of sorts to keep you on your toes, getting those apples as fast as possible. Another great thing about this game is there are a number of skins that you can choose from, some of which include a train where you have to pick up the passengers, or hot dog, where you're this little dog and you have to grab the bones. This game is great, and I highly recommend it. Next, this is Lunar Phantom, a shareware game that takes inspiration from the classic arcade Lunar Lander. In Lunar Phantom, your goal is to control a ship and land it safely on a designated platform. But that's easier said than done. The game features 14 challenging stages with a range of hazards to navigate. You'll need to carefully maneuver your ship around obstacles and avoid enemy ships, while also keeping an eye on your fuel level. If you run out of fuel, you'll be stranded in space and inevitably crash. One of the best things about Lunar Phantom are the variety of environments you'll encounter. The game takes you on a wild ride through various scenarios, such as landing on a kitchen counter or a ship in the ocean. Each environment presents its own set of challenges, from avoiding obstacles to managing your fuel consumption.
Go for landing.
This was a very late Mac Plus game, being released in 1995. And as such, it never really received the recognition it deserved, since most Mac gamers had moved on to color games by then. Black and white just kinda seemed old at that point. If you're a fan of classic arcade games, or are just looking for a fun and challenging game to play, Lunar Phantom is definitely worth checking out. Next up, I've got another clone of a classic arcade. This is Roids. Roids is basically just like the arcade game Asteroids. You control a spaceship, and your goal is to shoot down the asteroids, which break into smaller pieces when you hit them. One of the differences in Roids are the alien ships, which appear more frequently than in the arcade. They're also a little bit nastier in this game, as they move a lot more freely and can fire both lasers and guided missiles at you. It's a very simple game with buttons to rotate, a thruster button, a regular shoot button, and a warp button that will send you to a random part of the screen. I'm really impressed by this game. It's amazing how it manages to run on a Mac Plus, despite the fact that the hardware wasn't really designed for this kind of game. There are so many sprites moving around the screen at once, and the digitized audio is just the icing on the cake. If you're a fan of classic arcade games, or just looking for a fun and challenging experience, give Roids a try. You won't be disappointed. Next, I'm excited to show you a fascinating adventure game known as Adventures of Sean. The game is centered around the character Sean, a guy who just can't seem to catch a break. The story begins with Sean being rudely awakened by his alarm clock, and in his frustration, he tosses it out of the window. However, upon leaving his apartment, he realizes that the alarm clock he threw out struck and killed someone, causing him to panic and seek refuge from the police. Which is the primary objective of this game: help Sean evade the police and get out of town. Throughout the game, you'll explore various locations, solve puzzles, and interact with different characters to advance the story. The game's dark humor adds an extra layer of depth and keeps you engaged throughout the game. One thing to note is that the game was developed in HyperCard. Thus, to run the game, you will need to have at least the HyperCard Player app installed on your computer. So you'll need a hard drive for this, as I don't think you'll be able to run that from floppy disks. I have personally played through Adventures of Sean more than a few times over the years, so I can attest to its replay value. It's not a terribly long game either. Your first playthrough will probably be less than an hour, but it still never seems to get old, and I always find myself discovering something new with each playthrough. If you're looking for an adventure game that is both engaging and humorous, Adventures of Sean is definitely worth checking out. The last game today is a fictional sports game called Pararena, and it's one I think is definitely worth talking about. The game's concept is loosely based on the 1975 science fiction film Rollerball, and it offers a unique and challenging gameplay experience that is almost entirely mouse-controlled. In Pararena, you'll find yourself in a disc-shaped arena with the objective of getting the ball into your opponent's goal. There's only one ball that both players will be fighting over, crashing into each other, to try and mess up their shot and prevent them from scoring. This makes for a highly competitive and fast-paced gameplay experience that can be quite difficult to master. Although I must confess that I am not as skilled at the game as I used to be, Pararena was definitely one of my favorites back in the day. It's a challenging game that offers a lot of fun and excitement, battling through several different opponents through several different game modes. The game's creator, John Calhoun, is best known for his popular Glider series of games, which overshadow many of his other works. However, Pararena is an interesting and engaging concept that is definitely worth checking out. In my opinion, there weren't many sports games on the Mac that were worth playing, but Pararena is definitely an exception. Its unique concept and challenging gameplay make it a must-try for anyone looking for a fun and competitive game on Mac Plus. And there we have it. That was a look at 5 Mac Plus games that I consider to be hidden gems on the platform. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like on it to let me know. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button to join me for more classic Mac gaming. I cover everything from black and white stuff all the way to Intel stuff, with more videos in the works. Thanks so much for your time today, guys. Goodbye.